Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting of Tuesday, the 24th of September 2024. East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meetings via webcasting. These recordings are available for viewing by the public by following the link on Council's website. During the meeting, any members of the public who are addressing the Council will have their image and comments recorded. No other person has the right to record Council meetings unless approval has been granted by the Chair. In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are able to attend council meetings electronically or in person, and the meeting will be open to the public via live streaming. If technical difficulties are experienced with the live streaming during the meeting, we will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If technical issues cannot be resolved, the meeting may be postponed to a later time or date. East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai, Kurnai, Monero and Bidwell people as the traditional owners of the land that encompasses East Gippsland and their enduring relationship with country. The traditional owners have cared for and nurtured East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council value their living culture and practices and their right to self-determination. Council pays respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders, past, present and future. A member's attendance can only be recorded at a council meeting when the member can confirm that they meet the following criteria. Firstly, that they can hear proceedings and can be heard by other members in attendance, and secondly, that they can be seen by members in attendance and can be seen by other members. I'll now confirm with our councillors online that they can see and hear us and are participating from a secure location. Good afternoon, Councillor Buckley.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Can you see and hear us?
Indeed I can.
And can you confirm the location you're participating from this afternoon is secure?
Indeed it is.
Excellent. Thank you very much. If a councillor participating electronically experiences technical difficulties during the meeting, we may adjourn briefly to enable the councillor to rejoin the meeting. Should the councillor be unable to reconnect within 5 minutes, the meeting shall resume in the councillor's absence. Agenda item 1.2 is the purpose of this meeting, and in accordance with Rule 4.3, Section 3 of Council's Governance Rules, Fiona Weigel, Chief Executive Officer, in consultation with myself, Tom Crook, the Mayor and councillors, has called this unscheduled meeting of Council to consider an item relating to Council business. Fiona Weigel, Chief Executive Officer, as required under Rule 4.3, subsection 6 of Council's Governance Rules, has given notice on the Council's website of the unscheduled meeting to occur today on Tuesday the 24th of September at 3:30 p.m. Agenda item 1.3 is apologies. CEO, are there any apologies for today's meeting?
We have no apologies, Mayor.
Thank you. Agenda item 1.4 is declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in today's meeting? Officers or councillors? No, I see none. Thank you very much. Agenda item 1.5 is the next meeting. The next meeting of Council is scheduled to occur on Tuesday, the 15th of October 2024, here at the Corporate Centre at 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, commencing at 6 p.m. Agenda item number 2 is officer reports, and the first officer report, in fact our only officer report for today, is agenda item 2.1.1, which is the annual financial statements 2023-24 and performance statement 2023-24. And Sarah Johnson, I believe this sits in your directorate, if you'd like to introduce the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your time. Look, today we've got a report before you that is titled the Annual Financial Statements and Performance Statements for the year 2023-24. And what it's seeking is the Council's in-principle approval for the 23-24 financial statements and performance statements to be submitted through to VAGO, and also the appointment of 2 councillors to certify that the financial statements and performance statements in their final form. And I'll just run you through a few of the key points. I'm just going to touch on the process piece and the audit piece, and then I'm going to touch on some of the key financial sustainability indicators as part of the wrap-up of the end of year as well. So if we think about it from a process perspective, every year we obviously have to present an annual report. The annual report includes the financial statements and the performance statements and a range of other information that is part of Council's discharge of our reporting requirements. As it's an election year, and that's why you're seeing this particular unscheduled meeting happen today, because there's only certain things that you can consider as a council group in election period. We have to present the annual report to the community before the general election day, which this year is the 26th of October. As the Mayor's just highlighted, this particular report will come to this council group on the 15th of October. And it's because of the fact that there's a limited amount of time between when we've finished up the annual financial statements and performance statements and the presentation of the annual financial report that we do this in principle adoption and the in principle notification of 2 councillors to certify these statements. We've just held a meeting with the Audit and Risk Committee earlier today to consider the annual financial statements and the performance statements and the audit that they have done. So what happens every year is the Victorian Auditor General's Office, which is an independent party, appoints other auditors to come in and do the external audit. We call them external auditors for us. So we had Nick Bell from RSD come and present to the joint meeting of the councillors and the Audit and Risk Committee at the meeting that we just held before, and the closing report that we've got from them is stating that the accounts are presented fairly and that they're not expecting to issue an unmodified audit opinion. They're the really important things, and there's been an absolute enormous amount of work from the finance team to get us to that particular point, so that is to be celebrated. Once the statements have been certified in the... Sorry, let me go back one step. We must appoint the 2 councillors to certify the statements in their final form once the Auditor General has advised that this can be done. We can also advise that the Victorian Auditor General's Office have let us know that this can happen as of today. So that's a really positive outcome as well, and that's happened really quickly. Again, I think a big testament to the relationships that have been built across the business with the auditors. Once they've been certified in the required manner, they're provided to the Auditor General, and then the audit report is issued. Once the audit report's issued, it's all bundled up into the annual report that is then presented for adoption on the 15th of October. The Audit and Risk Committee recommended that Council do adopt the financial statements and performance statements in principle, based on all of those things that was discussed earlier today. If I can just touch now on some of the key results in the financial statements. So they are a set of the comprehensive income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flows, equity and capital work statements, and that's all summarised throughout the reports. You will see that there's an operating surplus of $22.5 million before the revaluation adjustment against a budgeted surplus of $43.5 million. There's a variance of $21 million there. Total income was less than budget by 9% and expenditure also exceeded budget by 5%, and there's a net revaluation loss of $124.98 million, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. So from a key financial sustainability perspective, what's really important is to look at those indicators that test whether we're in a financial sustainable position. So from a net result perspective, we've got a positive net result, and the why that was not against budget is because of the timing of when we received grants, and we don't have any control of the timing of when we received those general purpose grants, but that's the main contributor to that one. You'll also see that our liquidity is looking extremely positive and way above budget. Our indebtedness is, whilst we have got more debt this last financial year, it's still in a very strong position and exceeding all targets. And you'll see that the asset renewal percentage is well above the 100%, even though we didn't fully expend the capital works budget across the last financial year, noting that it was the strongest and biggest financial capital spend that we've ever had in the history of council, which is something also to be celebrated. One of the indicators is at a medium risk rating, and that's because we have recorded an underlying deficit. An underlying deficit is when we take away all the recurrent grants, and we look at that in that format. The reason that we've recorded an underlying deficit is because, again, of the timing of that grant income and the receipt of that grant income, which I've talked about a little bit earlier. We expect, and we know from a forecast perspective, that we expect to have an underlying deficit next financial year, or this financial year that we're in now, but then across the 10-year period, we're in a positive position, which is a really good thing to note and very important to note. So apart from that, I don't think that there's anything else that I need to touch on. So you can see that the officer recommendation is in your reports today, and I've obviously got Liz Collins here, our finance manager, as well, if you've got any other questions that I haven't touched on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillors, are there any questions of the report or officers? Councillor Buckley, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for the comprehensive report, and apologies that I have a sore voice, but I'll do my best. In earlier discussions, it was and by the report, we've had an increase in the rates by $4 million. Is that correct, Liz?
Yes, that increase in rates was a result of growth in the number of rateable assessments, together with the 3.5% increase that was applied from the previous year.
Okay, thanks very much. And it became evident in the business improvements and opportunities in the report that there's been other findings, and some of them were operations and procedures that would need to undergo review, and some of them were risk management frameworks, fraud and corruption policies, etc., debt management procedure. So can you just explain to me a little bit about, and I'm not sure that this is Liz's department, but how this will be undertaken by the Future Council Group?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Buckley. It's a really good question, a really good way to drill into this particular one. So what you're talking about is the recommendations from the External Auditor's report. That then flows through to the next meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee, and they're the ones that then keep track on that, and management provides updates on that to the level of assurance of the Audit and Risk Committee, and then that flows through to the Council for reporting as well. And then you obviously get annually the opportunity to meet with the External Auditor as a council group and to drill into any of those questions and concerns that you may have to get the required assurance that you need for those particular parts. I can talk to those 3 particular procedures, and I do know that whilst they are overdue, and I'll admit that they're overdue, they are in train as being reviewed across the business and will be flowing through to the requisite approval level. I don't think they're all council policies, so you won't see them all in detail, but you will certainly hear back via the Audit and Risk Committee. So I hope that helps.
Certainly does. Thank you very much.
Councillor Reeves, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. My question relates to the net revaluation loss of nearly $125 million. Can you just perhaps put that in perspective of the total value of the assets that we're talking about?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's a really good question, and so when we talk about a revaluation reserve, the revaluation reserve, 125 million that's been recorded, it is an accounting figure. So if we're talking about the total plant, property, and equipment, that line item, it's 1.362 billion. Yeah, so from a percentage perspective, we talk about materiality being a 10% threshold. It's well under a 10% threshold from that perspective. If that helps.
Thank you, and that was the answer that I was expecting, and I take reassurance from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillors, any further questions on the report or of officers? I see none, in which case there is an officer recommendation in the report. Do I have a motion? Councillor Allen, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'd like to move the recommendation with the addition of your good self and Councillor Reeves as the 2 councillors to sign the accounts.
And I'm happy to accept that nomination if that's something I need to do.
And I'm happy to receive that, and I think that proximity to the Audit and Risk Committee, I think, makes sense.
Good. Thank you.
And do I have a second for that motion? Councillor Uri, thank you very much. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, first of all, to thank both of you for accepting that responsibility to sign off. But I think from reading those statements and from what we've heard from the auditors, I think I take a lot of comfort in that report and that process. And I think that our staff been involved in this have acquitted themselves extremely well, as was borne out by the auditor, who made special mention that you didn't rush in everything. When you got there, everything was ready to go, and I think that's a testament to the dedication of everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm happy to endorse the motion. It's been a really interesting day, I think, for councillors as we've been reading through the annual finances and yet to come the performance statement, and have an opportunity to meet with the Audit and Risk Committee to ask lots of questions of that committee and also the auditor and their report. I think I certainly feel comforted about the report itself, and I thank officers for their highlighting of some of the summaries too. I think that's been great to hear that. So very happy to receive these reports, and very happy for yourself and Councillor Reeves to sign off on the statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Greason, please go ahead.
I just want to thank the officers for their work, pulling all of this together. It's been huge, and you've been very transparent in your working with the community who've questioned you about the financial statements, etc. And so thank you. It's excellent work.
Thank you, Councillor Greason. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? No, in which case I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously, CEO. Thank you, councillors. And councillors, that brings us to the end of this afternoon's meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you to anybody public gallery or might be watching online. And I now declare the meeting closed at 3:47. Have a pleasant afternoon. See you next time.